Hello again, it's time for us to preview Division 2 and Division 3 of action, and there were some big games last weekend. Division 3, we saw one of the better final quarters of the year, Watsonia getting their first win in 27 matches it was, stepping back all the way to 2009. They were too good for Heidelberg West by just the 2 points. I'm pretty sure they'll be buoyed by that performance, but Cooney, we were in the commentary box on Saturday and we were inundated by messages from the Watsonia faithful saying the comeback is on. Pretty exciting stuff down there.
Yeah, it was amazing. It seemed like every couple of minutes we were getting 24 points down, 18 points, and it was just getting closer and closer. And then I think it was pretty close to the end. They actually got their noses in front. It was a massive win for Watsonia. I'm sure it was a bit of a celebration down there that night.
Well, there was obviously the heartbreak on the other side for Heidelberg West, getting so close again. Just the 2 points separating both the sides. For Watsonia, it gets more difficult this week when they take on Parkside, who had their first loss of the year on the weekend. They were soundly beaten by South Morang, about 4-goal margin, but South Morang really did control the game for the most part and were the deserving winner. I think Parkside will bounce back again this week, but certainly after that performance, who knows, perhaps the sky's the limit after a win like that. What it can do for your confidence would be amazing.
Yeah, and we saw they, obviously it'd be great for them to get the monkey off the back, getting the win and that sort of things, but as much as they did compete the other week against Reservoir, they got pretty close, but can't see them getting a win, unfortunately, in this one.
Well, Reservoir comes back into action this week. They had the bye last weekend. They take on St Mary's. St Mary's have put in some pretty good showings. Last week they were beaten by Panton Hill, a pretty undermanned Panton Hill, but a really good performance by the Redbacks. Just a fighting effort, and despite injuries to some key players like Ben Parker and the like, who was out for 8 weeks, and also their captain and vice captain not being on the pitch as well, put in a fighting performance and knocked over the Borough. This week I think Reservoir off the break. I think their form was good going into round 5, and then they had the week off, and I think against St Mary's, the ever-improving St Mary's, I still think that Reservoir will be too strong and get the 4 points in this one.
Yeah, it should be, as you said though, St Mary's have been improving a lot, so it should be a pretty close game, and even last week they only went down by the 13 points to Panton Hill, so pretty close, even though Panton Hill obviously are suffering from a few injuries, but yeah, I think that Reservoir should be just a little bit too strong again.
We look at St Mary's last year, they had just the 2 wins in the season, and then this year they've already won the 3 games, getting close last week, so there's plenty to look forward to, and it's not out of the question to say they can finish in the top 4 come season's end. I tipped them last week to win, just based on the lineups, and they got close, obviously not close enough, but they are really building something good down there, so it's good to see those improved performances, but I think Reservoir will be too strong in this one. The other game in Division 3 this weekend is probably the game of the round in Division 3. It's Panton Hill up against South Morang. South Morang back on top of the ladder after beating Parkside. They were on top of the ladder 2 weeks ago. They had to bye in round 5, and Parkside went on top after their win. But Panton Hill, some great performers, as I mentioned, and you think they'd get a few players back. I think John Byron might be back this week after serving a couple of weeks suspension, so he'll be back in the mix. And South Morang, of course, you can't push their name aside. They're probably the premiership favourite, I think, along with Parkside and perhaps Reservoir in the top in Division 3 rather. And I think I'll just stick with South Morang. I think they're just in better form, and I think despite perhaps a few inclusions by Panton Hill, South Morang for mine is still the team to beat.
Yeah, pretty sure the South Morang will cement their spot at the top of the ladder this week with another strong win after obviously a good one last week.
Yeah.
And even I spoke to Troy Jeanette over the weekend, who's of course was in the best for South Morang, and he said sounds obvious, but they have a lot of hunger amongst the boys, so they don't sound like they're going to sort of ease up or anything out there on top, and are really going to try to push to maintain it.
Yeah, well, they're in some pretty good form. They had just the 1 loss in round 1 to St Mary's. It was a shock loss, and I have talked to some people at South Morang since then. They've come through the office, and they were really disappointed with that. It was a 5-point loss, and they were just really rusty the first game of the year. So really, you take that loss aside, they've won every game since, and I mean their 1 loss was by, as we mentioned, less than a kick, so they're in some pretty decent form, and have knocked over probably their main rival in Parkside on the weekend, so I'm sure they'll even get even better from here. Division 2 saw some pretty big games last week, none bigger than the round 6 match of the day. It was Lalor up against Lowell Plenty. Both sides went into the game undefeated, and I think it's fair to say that Lowell Plenty still winning as favourite. I mean, we had the poll on NFL website, and I think it was 68% of people thought that Lowell Plenty would win that game, but it was quite the opposite when we got there. In conditions perfect for football, it was pretty windy at the start, but Lalor's hard bodies in the middle just continually won the clearances, and they smashed Lowell Plenty's midfield, I felt, and gave their forwards first use every time, and they were just too good all over the ground. And after that second quarter, they had the breeze in the second, and they really made use of it. They led by 5 goals with a fantastic win. Lord Plenty on the flip side will bounce back again this week when they take on Fitzroy Stars. Sure, both sides are keen for the 4 points, but they're also both in pretty good form. Fitzroy Stars having a good win over Mernda on the weekend, winning by just under 100 points. It's at Vic Park, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see two pretty different styles of play where Fitzroy Stars like to run and carry on a wide ground, whereas for Lord Plenty is probably just get it into the big forwards in Billy Barden and Darcy Barden rather, and also Ben Gill, who has had goals on the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see how they actually fare against each other. I think Lord Plenty still for mine will be the one that comes away with the points this weekend.
Yeah, I've gone for Lower Plenty as well, but it was interesting. Obviously, Laylaw stopped them from getting the ball in as they wanted to those big forwards last week, and they really just looked lost at times. They didn't really have many other alternatives to go to, and if Fitzroy could do the same sort of thing, they should have a really good chance at it. But we've seen how good Lower Plenty can be in the last few weeks, so I just think they should be too strong.
Well, that was the interesting thing for mine. They've been able to score so freely over the course of the season, but Laylaw just restricted them. I think probably that run from the half-back as well. And in the first quarter, despite kicking with probably a 5-goal or so breeze, they only were able to kick the 2 goals. They were up by 4 points, but Laylaw was able to restrict their run from the back. And how many times we saw where Lower Plenty's turned the ball over, perhaps the wing, just kicking along, and Laylaw had pushed a few numbers back and did a fantastic job in clogging up the forward line. And they really struggled to kick goals and only kicked, I think it was 8 by the end of the game. So that's where Laylaw probably won it. The next game on the cards is Thomastown up against Mernda. It's the two sides without a win so far in 2011, so it should be a pretty interesting game there. They'll both be striving hard to get their first win of the season. I think despite both sides not recording a win just yet, I think Thomastown is probably playing the better football. They've been far more competitive, and I know it's been a tough year for Mernda. They've got things right off-field, so hopefully they can develop onto some on-field success, pardon me. But I think still in this one, Thomastown for mine, they're at home, and you'd probably have to think that on their home paddock they can get the job done.
Yeah, you'd think that Thomastown should get the job done. They are playing a little bit better than Mernda, but on the same side, Mernda would really know that now they've got themselves sort of set off field again. They would see this game as one they could get a win. They know it'll be a tough season, but they would have marked this one down saying if we really step up on that day, we could sneak past Thomastown. So they could be dangerous on Saturday, but Thomastown just at home, I think.
Well, today it's an unpredictable game, football, so you just don't know what you're going to get on any given day, and you can't write Mernda off in that one at all. The next game that we'll go through is Hurstbridge up against Epping. Epping is just continually getting better, I think, as the season progresses. They struggled at the start of the year, and the last 4 weeks have been fantastic. Of course, I think they would have gained a lot of confidence after that win over Diamond Creek. The big come from behind win where Aaron Willits was the hero with 30 seconds to go, and that was last week rather. They got the job done easily again, and they're just finding some form. They're winning some the games they're expected to win, and they're winning comprehensively, so which is of course giving you percentage, but also just showing that they are capable of matching it with probably Laylaw and Lower Plenty, who are the two sides to beat in 2011. But I think in this one, Hurstbridge is probably struggling a bit over the last couple of weeks, and I think Epping for mine.
Yeah, Hurstbridge obviously having a bit of a stir. They lost by just under 100 last week, 93 actually, and then they come in this week playing against a team who won by 93 points last week, so it doesn't sort of seem to get much better for them. But even when you mentioned with Epping's win against Diamond Creek, when they were able to sort of get out of jail really and get a win, it's a trait that all the good teams seem to have. They can find a way to win those close games, and Epping are really proving they are one of the good teams in Division 2.
Well, they've got some quality players across the board. We mentioned Willits, but they've also got Daniel Moore, who's probably playing the best football of anyone in Division 2 just about lately. He's continually in the best and getting plenty of votes off the coaches, and I'm sure he'll be amongst the umpires' votes when come season's end. And they've also got young Adrian Totino, who's just racking up possessions. On the week he kicked 5 goals as well, pushing through the midfield and going forward. So it's a fine display. And there's plenty of talent there. Jared King, Brad Hollow, just two hard, nuggeting midfielders and who can use the ball as well. So they've got plenty of talent, and they definitely can match it with the best. So on their given day, I think they can really take it up to anyone. And the final game we have on the agenda is the undefeated Laylaw taking on Diamond Creek. It's at Diamond Creek, and I really think this is a game that the Diamond Creek will be setting themselves for. But after what we saw last week, I'm really finding it hard to go past Laylaw at all. They were fantastic across the board. Peter Shepherd took some of the better grabs you'll see across the course of the year. He only kicked goal of the season, if not the decade, on the boundary, where he kept the ball in miraculously, danced around a couple of opponents, pardon me, and then with the check side just hit the post, unfortunately. But he was fantastic, and even all their back line stood up, and through the middle was Tim Keeley as some of our set just falls down, and Mark Ventura, who was the NFL was it Simmons Holmes player of the day rather, and he was fantastic with a couple of goals and just setting them up across the midfield. They've got Steve Marshall going through the middle as well, so they're good across all three lines. And for mine, despite Diamond Creek getting a good win on the weekend and probably really priming themselves for this game, I think Lalor is definitely the team to beat in this one.
Yeah, obviously, as we saw Lalor last week, they were very strong against probably fancied lower 20 sides, so they were able to get a strong win against the run of play there, what you'd think going in the week. But Diamond Creek, obviously, winning by almost 100 points last week and have been in really good form lately. Were unlucky to lose to Epping, although they did throw away a little bit of a lead. But at home, I think Diamond Creek might just get this one. As you said, they'd be set for this. They'd know it's a massive game coming up against the undefeated Lalor and could just steal it, I think.
I think it's a difficult fortnight for Lalor. Of course, they come up against Lower Plenty was first last week, and then the week after having to take on probably the second best team in the competition. So hopefully there's no letdown after obviously such a big mental build up going into last week's game and priming themselves for a huge game. It was the NFL match of the day, of course, and they were fantastic. You couldn't fault them in any way, shape or form. They were just fantastic and really probably proved that they are the best team in Division 2. Of course, there's a lot of footy to be played, and of course, there's plenty of water to go under the bridge, but at the moment, they're probably definitely the team most fancied to win after that performance, and just the manner of the win. But there could also be that element of perhaps a mental letdown, of course, after such a big week. And Diamond Creek, as we said, probably really stealing themselves for this match as well. But I think even despite all that and all the things going on aside of that, I think that Lalor will still come away with the win. I think they'll be 7-0 after 7 rounds of football, which is a fantastic effort for a club that had a disappointment of coming down last year from Division 1.
Yeah, but it was interesting speaking to the president of Lalor on Saturday. Said that they actually kept pretty much the whole team together from the Division 1 relegation last year. But even just we've seen across Division 2 and 3, there's so many teams that could pretty much on the day would back themselves to beat almost anyone in the competition. So it shows that even though it's not the top level, there's some great competition and great teams all throughout the league.
And it was great to also see a big crowd at Lalor on the weekend for Division 2 footballs. There's a game they'd set themselves for, I think, from a few weeks back. I think both sides really thought that they would be undefeated going into that one, and the supporters for both sides came out. It was unfortunate that it was a bit one-sided, and I think we all anticipated a closer game, but I mean, as we said, to Lalor's credit, they were fantastic and thoroughly deserved the 4 points and probably, at this stage, premiership favouritism. Thank you for joining us again on this Thursday night. We'll see you again next week. Make sure you're tuning in. Also, on the weekend, make sure you're listening to 88.6 Plenty Valley FM. Get online at www.nfl.org.au, all your results and ladders, and of course get out to the juniors on Sunday, the youth girls on Saturday morning at Barling Reserve, and the Friday night netball at RMIT, pardon me, sorry, I never get that one mixed up. So RMIT Bandura, and enjoy it all and get along and support the boys and girls. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.